So what we more frequently are working with are entrepreneurs who start businesses. They may have a very significant tranche of stock or restricted stock that they inherit. The cost base is de minimis because they're getting shares at, a fraction of a cent, et cetera.
So what's the number one secret, David, to the future of wealth management and helping people create and preserve more wealth?
Well, I think there's some macro components to it. I think for the sake of this podcast, since you generally are very tactical, is for people that hold stock in technology companies, biotechnology, and small businesses, is really understanding the nuances of Section 1202 qualified small business stock. It, I think, has become more well known, certainly, than it was when it first got written into law, but the ability to avoid up to 10 million in capital gains or 50 times your cost basis is probably one of the most valuable tools when it comes to planning from a tax optimization standpoint for people with long-term holdings in a business.
Excellent. So let's walk right through that. It sounds pretty cool, right? And so we have explored this a little bit, but this is good to have you on the show so we can kind of deep dive. So up to 10 million of gains. So let's say I bought a business or started a business and it's gone up into 10 million of gain. And let's say I have a zero basis and I'm selling for 10 million or you said 50x the cost basis. So break that down and give us the scenario in which this fits and give us an example.
Sure. So just to extend your concept, you buy a small software business, at a couple $1,000,000 is sort of your entry cost basis. You sell it or have the opportunity to sell it 5 years later. Can't be before 5 years to capture the full gain. Up to 50 times the cost basis of the investment, or 10 million, the greater of those two things, is federally tax exempt. And some states like New York, where I'm based, also recognizes it. So you have that same deferral. So for stock sales after 5 years for people that are in those states, it's exempt. California is different, but it's a super powerful tool. And if for some reason, you had that qualifying business, and there's some tests for being qualifying that we can touch base on, you don't get to 5 years, say you sell after 3 years. If you were to find another qualifying opportunity to reinvest in, very similar to the 1031 exchange that you talked about recently, you can reinvest it and defer capital gains. And if that next investment ultimately qualifies both as a business and for that 5 year period, you would pay, no taxes on the outcome.
Okay, let me make sure I got that. So I buy a business for 2 million and I sell it for $12 million. That's a $10 million gain, right? Let's just imagine my basis stayed the same. I'm good. But what if I sold it for 20 million? Would that mean that excess 8 million is still taxable?
It shouldn't, based on that cost basis. So what we more frequently are working with are entrepreneurs who start businesses. They may have a very significant tranche of stock or restricted stock that they inherit. The cost basis is de minimis because they're getting shares at, a fraction of a cent, et cetera. And for those individuals where the cost basis is pretty low, they're maximizing through that 10 million value. But if you're putting up, $1 million, $2 million, it can be a very large capital gain tax exemption, not just deferral.
Okay, so again, you buy it $2 million and you sell it for 50 million, right? So that's more than 10 million. Am I still okay above that because it's still within that 50 times my basis?
You should be.
You should be. Okay, got it. All right, because I wasn't clear on that because you said whichever one was higher, which, okay, yes, that makes sense. So the 50 times the cost basis of 2 is higher, right? So that's cool. And in that scenario, it could be 100 million, right? And it should be good. But if it was 101 million, then only 100 million would qualify. Is that, am I getting the math right there now?
Yep.
Okay, cool. That's awesome.